I still remembered the exact moment I realized my parents saw me as the family's academic backup plan. I was 17, sitting at our dining room table with college brochures spread out in front of me, and my mother walked past, glanced at the Johns Hopkins pamphlet in my hands, and laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, dismissive laugh that made my father look up from his newspaper. Johns Hopkins? Emma, sweetheart, be realistic, she said, setting down her coffee mug with a clink that felt louder than it should have been. Your cousin Madison is applying there. She has a 4.0 GPA and perfect SAT scores. Maybe look at the community college brochures instead. They have wonderful nursing programs. My father nodded without even looking at me. Your mother's right. Madison's the scholar in the family. Always has been. You're more of a... Well, you're good with people, Emma. That's a different kind of smart. I felt my cheeks burn, but I didn't argue. I never argued back then. Instead, I quietly gathered my brochures and took them to my room, where I had been secretly building what I called my dream folder for the past 2 years. Inside were practice SAT tests I'd completed on my own, AP study guides I'd bought with money from my part-time job at the library, and printouts of scholarship applications I'd been working on since sophomore year. My parents didn't know about any of it, because they'd made it clear that academic ambition wasn't my thing. You see, in my family, there had always been a clear hierarchy. Madison, my cousin who lived 3 streets away, was the golden child. Straight A's since kindergarten, student council president, captain of the debate team. She was everything my parents wished I could be, and they never let me forget it. Every family dinner became a Madison highlight reel. Every holiday gathering turned into a celebration of her latest academic achievement, and I was expected to smile and applaud and accept my role as the one who tried her best but just wasn't naturally gifted like Madison. What they didn't know was that I'd been studying in secret for years. While they thought I was working extra shifts at the library, I was actually hiding in the 3rd-floor study rooms, drilling chemistry equations and calculus problems until my hand cramped. While they assumed I was hanging out with friends on weekends, I was taking online prep courses I'd saved up for months to afford. I studied like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. Education was my escape route, and I wasn't going to let anyone's low expectations stop me. The insults weren't always direct, but they cut deep anyway. At Madison's high school graduation party that summer, I overheard my aunt telling my mother, "At least Emma is pretty. She won't need a fancy degree to do well in life. Madison is going to have to rely on her brains." My mother agreed with a sympathetic nod, as if my looks were a consolation prize for being academically inferior. A few weeks later, during a family barbecue, my uncle asked me about my plans for after graduation. Before I could answer, my father jumped in. "Emma's taking a gap year to figure things out. No point in rushing into college when you're not sure what you want to do." He said it kindly, but the implication was clear. I wasn't college material. At least, not for anywhere that mattered. I smiled through it all, but inside, I was counting down the B's until I could prove them wrong. I'd already taken the SAT 3 times, each score higher than the last. My final score was a 1560, which I celebrated alone in my car, crying tears of relief and pride. I'd already submitted applications to 15 schools, including Johns Hopkins, Stanford, MIT, and Northwestern. I'd written scholarship essays that made my English teacher tear up and offered to write me the most glowing recommendation letter she had ever composed. But my parents didn't know about any of this because they'd never asked. The real breaking point came in October of my senior year, the night before early decision deadlines. I was in my room reviewing my Johns Hopkins application one final time before submitting it when my mother knocked and entered without waiting for a response. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she was about to deliver news she'd already decided was good for me. She said, "Your father and I need to talk to you about college tuition." Began sitting on the edge of my bed. "We know you've been looking at some schools and we want to be honest with you about our financial situation." My heart started pounding. I'd assumed they had some college savings for me, the way most parents did. Nothing extravagant, but something to help with state school tuition at least. "We had put aside about $60,000 for your education," my mother continued, and my hopes lifted for just a moment, before she added, "But we've made a decision as a family. Madison got into Johns Hopkins for early decision, and the tuition there is enormous. Your aunt and uncle are struggling with the costs, even with some financial aid. So we've decided to give your college fund to Madison to help cover her first 2 years." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "You're giving my college fund to Madison? It's not like you were planning to go anywhere expensive, right?" My mother said, her tone suggesting this was perfectly reasonable. "You can go to community college for 2 years and then transfer somewhere local. That's much more affordable, and honestly, it's probably a better fit for you anyway. Madison's going to be a doctor, Emma. She needs Johns Hopkins. You understand?" I understood perfectly. I understood that they valued Madison's education over mine so completely that they didn't even see the cruelty in what they were saying. I understood that they'd made this decision without asking me because they'd already written off my academic potential. I understood that in their minds, I was the sacrifice worth making for the family's real scholar. "When were you going to tell me this?" I managed to ask, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the rage building in my chest. "We're telling you now." My mother stood up. "The money transfers to your aunt's account next week. Madison's first tuition payment is due in January, and this will really help them. You're such a sweet girl, Emma. I knew you'd understand." After she left, I sat frozen on my bed for what felt like hours. Then I opened my laptop and submitted my Johns Hopkins application, and Stanford, and MIT, and Northwestern, and Yale, and 10 other schools I'd been agonizing over for weeks. I submitted every single one with a fury I'd never felt before, my fingers shaking as I clicked the final confirmation buttons. If they wanted to bet on Madison's academic future, fine, but I was going to bet on myself. The months that followed were surreal. I checked my email obsessively, waiting for responses from admissions offices, while my family planned Madison's future around our dinner table. She'd gotten into Johns Hopkins, her dream school, and every conversation centered on her dorm room shopping lists, her course selection, her roommate preferences. My parents beamed with pride, hosting a celebration dinner where relatives toasted to Madison's success and slipped her cards with checks to help with expenses. I smiled through all of it. I've gotten good at smiling through things. In December, I received my first acceptance letter. Northwestern, full ride scholarship, $72,000 per year, all expenses covered, renewable for 4 years. I opened the email in the library during what was supposed to be my work shift and had to lock myself in the bathroom to cry without anyone hearing. I printed the letter on the library's printer and hid it in my dream folder at home, along with the growing collection of secrets I was keeping. Then came Stanford in January, accepted with a merit scholarship worth $95,000. Then MIT in February with a research grant and housing stipend totaling over $88,000. Then Yale, Princeton, Duke, Columbia. Each acceptance letter was another piece of validation, another crack in the narrative my family had built about me. But Johns Hopkins was the one I wanted most. Not because it was the best school on my list, though it certainly ranked among them, but because it was the school they'd decided I wasn't good enough for. It was the school they'd given my college fund away to help Madison attend. Every time my mother mentioned Madison's upcoming move-in day at Johns Hopkins, I thought about my pending application there and felt a mix of hope and vindication that kept me going through the worst of the family dinners. The day I found out about Johns Hopkins, I was sitting in AP biology, only half listening to a lecture about cellular respiration when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I normally kept it silenced during class, but I'd set specific email addresses to come through as priority notifications. Johns Hopkins admissions was one of them. My hand shook as I slipped my phone out under my desk. "Congratulations, Emma." That was all I needed to see. I clicked into the full email and felt my vision blur with tears. Accepted! Full tuition merit scholarship. Priority consideration for the Research Fellows Program, a personal note from the Dean of Admissions about my exceptional academic record and demonstrated commitment to biomedical research. I was going to Johns Hopkins. The same Johns Hopkins my parents had laughed about. The same Johns Hopkins they'd given my college fund away to help Madison attend. And I was going for free. I made it through the rest of the school day in a daze, clutching my phone like it might disappear if I let go. When I got home, I printed the acceptance letter and the scholarship details on our home printer, my hands trembling so badly that I had to try 3 times to get the pages to feed correctly. Then I hid them in my dream folder and tried to figure out when and how to tell my family. The decision was made for me 2 weeks later at Sunday dinner. The whole family was there, including Madison and her parents, celebrating some award Madison had won at school. My mother had made pot roast, and everyone was passing dishes around the table, talking over each other in that chaotic way large families do. "Emma, have you figured out which community college you're enrolling in?" my aunt asked between bites of mashed potatoes. "There's a good one about 20 minutes from here. Madison could give you some study tips before she leaves for Johns Hopkins." "Actually, Emma's been looking at maybe taking a full gap year," my father interjected. "Might do her some good to work full-time for a while, save some money, mature a little before starting college." "That's probably wise," my uncle agreed. "Not everyone's cut out for jumping straight into university. Emma's always been more of a late bloomer, academically speaking." Madison, to her credit, looked uncomfortable with the conversation, but she didn't defend me. No one did. They just kept talking about my limited future like I wasn't sitting right there, like they hadn't just casually decided that a gap year of minimum wage work was my ceiling. I felt something snap inside me. Not dramatically, not explosively, but quietly. A clean break, like a bone that's been cracked and finally gives way. "I'm going to Johns Hopkins." My voice wasn't loud, but something in my tone made everyone stop talking and turn to look at me. "What?" my mother said, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "I'm going to Johns Hopkins," I repeated, clearer this time. "I was accepted 7 weeks ago with a full tuition merit scholarship, renewable for 4 years, assuming I maintain a 3.5 GPA, total value of approximately $240,000. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the kitchen clock ticking from the other room. "That's not funny, Emma," my father finally said, his voice tight. I stood up, left the dining room, and went to my bedroom. They could hear me opening drawers, rustling papers. When I came back, I was holding my dream folder, now thick with acceptance letters and scholarship documents. I dropped it on the table in front of my parents with enough force to rattle the dishes. "Johns Hopkins, full tuition scholarship," I said, pulling out the first letter. "Stanford, merit scholarship worth $95,000. MIT, research grant and housing stipend, $88,000. Yale, Princeton, Duke, Columbia, all acceptances, most with significant financial aid or merit scholarships." I pulled out my SAT score report next, 1560 on the SAT. That's 99th percentile, by the way. I took it 3 times to get that score, paid for the tests myself with library job money. Then came my transcript, 4.0 GPA, 8 AP classes, President of Science Olympiad, which I joined sophomore year but never mentioned because no one asked what I did after school. I've been studying alone in the library for 2 years while you all assumed I was just shelving books. Madison's face had gone pale. My aunt's mouth was hanging open. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. "This is impossible," my father said, reaching for the Johns Hopkins letter. "These have to be fake. You're not... You didn't even what?" I asked, my voice still eerily calm. "Apply? Study? Try? I did all of those things, Dad. I just didn't tell you about it because you'd already decided I wasn't smart enough for it to matter." My mother found her voice. "Emma, sweetheart, this is wonderful. But you have to understand, we've already promised your college fund to Madison. We can't just..." "I don't want your money," I cut her off. "I never needed your money. Johns Hopkins is free. My dorm is covered. My books are covered. I even have a stipend for research expenses. The only thing I needed from you was belief that I could do it, and you couldn't even give me that." "Now, wait just a minute," my uncle started, his face reddening. "Madison worked incredibly hard to get into Johns Hopkins. You can't just..." "I worked hard too," I said, and for the first time, my voice cracked with emotion. "I worked so hard. I studied until 2 in the morning most nights. I taught myself AP chemistry because our school didn't offer it, and I needed it for my research application. I wrote 17 scholarship essays. I took the SAT 3 times because I knew I had to be perfect to be taken seriously. And none of you noticed because you'd already decided I was the dumb one." Madison finally spoke, her voice small. "Emma, I didn't know. I never meant for..." "This isn't about you, Madison," I said, and I meant it. "This isn't about you at all. You worked hard. You deserve Johns Hopkins. But so do I. The difference is your parents believed in you, and mine gave my college fund away without even asking what my plans were." My mother was crying now. "We were trying to help family. Madison's parents couldn't afford..." "And I'm not family?" I asked. "Or am I just the family members whose dreams were worth sacrificing?" I gathered my papers back into the folder, my hands steadier now than they'd been all evening. "I'm moving to Baltimore in August for the summer research program Johns Hopkins offered me. It starts June 15th. I'll be living on campus for the summer, and then I'll stay for the fall semester. I won't be coming back for Thanksgiving freshman year because I've been invited to participate in a conference in Boston. Christmas is optional." "Emma, please," my father said, standing up. "Let's talk about this. We made a mistake, but you can't just..." "I already accepted Johns Hopkins. I signed the scholarship paperwork last month. I committed to their research fellows program. It's done." As I walked back to my room, I heard chaos erupt behind me. Raised voices, accusations, my mother sobbing, Madison trying to apologize for something that wasn't her fault. I closed my door against all of it and sat on my bed, staring at the acceptance letter in my hands. I'd spent so long imagining this moment, the satisfaction of proving them all wrong, but now that it was here, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired and sad and painfully aware that I'd had to fight this hard just to be seen by my own family. The next few months were awkward in ways I couldn't have anticipated. My parents tried to backtrack, insisting they'd always known I was capable of great things and had only been trying to keep my expectations realistic. My mother wanted to throw me a graduation party to celebrate my college acceptance. My father offered to help me move into my dorm. They posted about my Johns Hopkins acceptance on Facebook with captions like, "So proud of our brilliant daughter," that made me want to scream. I declined the party. I declined the moving help. I declined their sudden, overwhelming attempts to be involved in my academic life now that it was prestigious enough to brag about. What I didn't decline was Madison's apology. She came to my house 3 days after the dinner without her parents and knocked on my bedroom door. "I need you to know I didn't ask them to give you their money," she said, standing in my doorway with tears in her eyes. "I didn't even know they were doing it until my mom mentioned it last month. When I asked where they got extra tuition money, she told me about your college fund, and I felt sick, Emma. I should have said something right then, but I convinced myself it wasn't my business. It wasn't your fault, I told her, and I meant it. My parents made that choice. Your parents accepted it. You were just trying to go to college. Still, she said, I'm sorry. And for what it's worth, I always thought you were smart. I guess I never said it out loud because everyone else was saying different things, and it felt weird to contradict them. We talked for a long time that afternoon, maybe the first real conversation we'd ever had without the weight of family expectations crushing us both. She told me about the pressure she felt to be perfect, to justify all the investment and faith everyone had in her. I told her about the loneliness of studying in secret, of achieving things no one celebrated because no one knew to look for them. We're both going to Johns Hopkins, she said finally, a small smile on her face. That's kind of amazing, actually. The family dumped on and the family golden child both going to the same prestigious university. Except I'm going for free, I couldn't help adding. And we both laughed, the tension finally breaking. June 15th arrived faster than I expected. I packed my car with everything I'd need for the summer research program, carefully avoiding my parents' offers to help. My mother cried on the front porch as I loaded the last box. My father stood with his hands in his pockets, looking older than I remembered. Emma, he called as I opened my car door. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. We failed you. I failed you. I looked at him for a long moment. This man who'd never thought to ask about my dreams because he'd decided what they should be without consulting me. Yeah, I said finally. You did. I drove to Baltimore with my windows down and music playing loud enough to drown out thoughts. The Johns Hopkins campus was more beautiful than I'd imagined. All brick buildings and green spaces, and students who looked as excited and nervous as I felt. The research program coordinator welcomed me with a folder full of materials and a name tag that read, Emma Chen, Biomedical Engineering, Class of 2028. Emma Chen, Johns Hopkins student. It felt surreal to see it in print. The summer program was intense in the best way. I worked in the lab studying cardiac tissue engineering alongside graduate students and professors who treated me like a colleague, not a charity case or a disappointment. I presented my research at a symposium in July and had professors from other universities express interest in my work. I made friends with other summer research students, brilliant people from all over the country who understood the language of science and ambition. I called home once a week because it felt like the right thing to do, but the conversations were stilted and brief. My mother asked surface-level questions about my dorm and meals. My father wanted to know if I needed money, which I didn't. They were trying, in their way, but there was a gulf between us now that I wasn't sure how to cross. Madison and I met for coffee in late August, a week before the fall semester officially started. She looked stressed, telling me about the pressure of pre-med requirements and the fear of not being good enough. I told her about my research and the professors who were already talking about publications with my name on them. Your parents ask about me? I asked, stirring sugar into my coffee. All the time, Madison admitted. They feel terrible, Emma. They know they screwed up. My mom keeps saying she should have told them to keep your college fund, that I could have taken out loans. Could you have? I asked, genuinely curious. She was quiet for a moment. Probably. It would have been hard, but yes. I think your parents wanted a reason to give me the money, wanted to feel like they were helping, and I was convenient justification. That sounds terrible, but I think it's true. It probably was true. It was easier for my parents to play generous relatives than to confront their own bias about their daughter's abilities. Giving Madison my college fund let them be heroes in one story while avoiding the uncomfortable truth of another. I went home for Christmas, mostly because my mother called crying and begging me to come. The house looked the same, but everything felt different. There was a Johns Hopkins pennant hanging in the living room that definitely wasn't there before. My mother had printed out my research symposium photo and framed it on the mantel next to Madison's high school graduation picture. "We're so proud of you," my mother said at least 6 times during dinner. "Are you?" I finally asked during dessert. "Or are you proud of the school name? Because you weren't proud when you thought I was going to community college. You weren't proud when you gave away my college fund. You were ashamed of me, embarrassed that I wasn't like Madison." The table went silent. My father set down his fork. "That's not fair," my mother whispered. "Isn't it?" I asked. "You're proud of Johns Hopkins, Emma. The Emma who comes with scholarship press releases and a research fellowship, but the Emma who was working minimum wage at the library and studying alone every night because her family didn't believe in her, you weren't proud of her." My father cleared his throat. "That's right. You're absolutely right. And I don't know how to fix it." "You can't," I said simply. "But you can do better going forward. You can believe people when they tell you who they are instead of deciding for them. You can ask before assuming. You can celebrate effort, not just outcomes." It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. There were no tears and hugs and promises that everything would magically be better. But it was honest, which felt more valuable. I'm finishing my sophomore year at Johns Hopkins now, and yesterday I got the email I've been waiting for since freshman year. I've been accepted into the accelerated MD-PhD program with full funding. 8 years of medical school and research completely covered, with a stipend for living expenses. The email came from the dean personally, congratulating me on my exceptional academic performance and groundbreaking research in cardiac tissue engineering. I called my parents to tell them. My mother cried, but this time it felt different. "I'm so proud of you," she said, and then added, "I should have been proud of you all along. The you who was working so hard when we couldn't see it. I'm sorry I missed that, Emma." It's not perfect. Our relationship probably never will be. But it's something. And for now, that's enough. Madison and I study together sometimes, 2 cousins who took very different roads to the same destination. She's thriving in her pre-med courses, and I'm deep in research that might actually change lives someday. We joke sometimes about the family dinner that changed everything, about the folder full of secrets that broke open our family's assumptions. "You know what's funny?" Madison said last week over late-night pizza in the library. "We both made it. We're both exactly where we're supposed to be. But you did it while proving everyone wrong, and I did it with everyone cheering me on. I'm not sure which required more strength." I told her maybe they both did. Different kinds of strength for different kinds of journeys. I still have that dream folder, tucked in my desk drawer in my dorm room. Sometimes I pull it out and look through the acceptance letters, the scholarship documents, the evidence of everything I accomplished when no one was watching. It reminds me that my worth was never defined by my family's belief in me. I defined it myself, one late-night study session at a time, one perfect SAT answer at a time, one scholarship essay at a time. The girl they thought wasn't college material is going to be Dr. Emma Chen someday, not because they believed I could, because I believed it enough for all of us. And that's the real victory.